Dieses Interview würde nicht in den Mainstream-Medien ausgespielt werden dürfen. Das sind nicht meine Worte, sondern die unseres heutigen Interviewgasts. Bei mir ist Frank Holmes. Frank Holmes ist der Milliardär aus Texas, wie wir ihn nennen. Er ist Fondsmanager, verwaltet mehrere Milliarden US-Dollar, war beispielsweise auch schon im letzten Edelmetall-Bullrun Fondsmanager of the Year, ja, weil er eine super Performance hingelegt hat. Er kennt das Mining, er kennt die Edelmetalle, er kennt alle anderen Metalle und er ist auch in der digitalen Welt zu Hause als Executive Chairman, also Vorstandsvorsitzender von Hive Digital Technologies, mit der wir bei AXINO ja auch zusammenarbeiten, wo wir auch einen Interessenskonflikt haben, weil wir selber Aktien zusätzlich auch haben. Und Frank hat also auch dort das Thema Bitcoin-Mining und auch Data Center, ja, also Datencenter. Also genau das, was man braucht, wenn man beispielsweise künstliche Intelligenz nutzt oder auch der Militärapparat benötigt, ja, also diese Datencenter, um Rechenleistung für neue Technologien bereitzustellen. Und ich habe in dem Video mit Frank gesprochen. Frank ist aus den USA zugeschaltet und ihr werdet sehen, also das ist jetzt das Intro, was ich nach dem Interview aufnehme, er hat auf einige Dinge vielleicht eine andere Sichtweise, sogar als wir manchmal, auch in anderen Interviews hier. Und ich bin der Meinung, dass es sehr interessant ist, eine teilweise andere Sichtweise, teilweise sind wir auch der gleichen Meinung, aus den USA zu hören, die trotzdem zu ähnlichen Schlüssen kommt, nämlich worauf wir in Zukunft als Anleger schauen sollten. Das Interview mit Frank ist natürlich auf Englisch geführt, weil er aus den USA ist, er selber ist Kanadier. Deshalb haben wir, weil ich weiß, dass Englisch nicht vielleicht jedermanns Lieblingssache ist und gerade auch ein langes Interview und dann auch noch, wie gesagt, in einer anderen Sprache kann noch komplexer sein, deshalb hat sich unser Team Mühe gegeben und euch sozusagen hier zum Mitlesen den Text übersetzt. Ihr könnt das Ganze ganz einfach, indem ihr hier an dem Videorand auf dieses Rädchen drückt, Einstellungen, und dann könnt ihr Untertitel einstellen und die Untertitelsprache auf Deutsch auswählen. Vielleicht ist auch YouTube gnädig und gibt uns eine KI-Übersetzung in der Sprache mit. Das wird sich leider erst beim Upload herausstellen. Ich weiß, wie gesagt, Englisch ist nicht für jedermann was, aber das Reinhören lohnt sich, weil es ist wirklich sehr spannend und Frank spricht auch darüber, was er als wirklich Milliarden-Dollar-Investor und auch jemand, der mehrere ETFs verwaltet, in 2026 kaufen wird. Ich wünsche viel Spaß bei dem Interview und bis bald. Gold has reached more than 4,000 US dollar this year. Silver is also going great. And also it was a very good year for Bitcoin. But now we have a couple of questions about what's up for 2026. And we have a very special guest today with us, Frank Holmes. Frank is CEO from US Global Investors, a very big asset management and investment firm out of the US. Frank is also executive chairman at Hive Digital Technologies, a Bitcoin mining company. He is experienced in the digital world of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, but also at the side of gold, precious metals and mining stocks. So Frank is really combining the old and new economy, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him about the current market situation. First of all, Frank, thank you very much for your time. I'm really looking forward to our interview.
Well, thank you. It's a great time at end of year. It's been a spectacular for investors in particular gold. We can talk about that asset class, but also for Hive.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I have to admit, I had a great year at both sides as well, also on the Hive stocks. But let's talk about gold first. You're already wearing your Go Gold hat because you're a fund manager and you also have your gold fund. You called gold at 4,000 US dollar for quite a while. So did we. And here we are, Frank. Nobody was expecting this. Everybody called us crazy. Nobody really believed that silver being at $50. And here we also are at $62. So give us an idea what happened this year, what unleashed this change, what unleashed the change in the market for gold and silver, and why are we at this price level? Is this just the beginning or is there room for more?
Well, thinking at 50,000 feet, looking at the Earth turning, we can, and you know so well, living in Germany, how close you are to Ukraine-Russian theater of tragic war. Well, there's other elements there that we have to realize that there is an economic war going on. And there's no missiles, but there's another strategy of blocking metals, strategic metals. There's the concept of what China, which I thought at first was a brilliant idea of one belt, one road to create a distribution. But really, under the dictatorship of Xi Jinping, it's become a methodology for weapon and weaponizing. And first is an economic weaponizing. So that's what we have to realize is that we have this digital world that's growing and booming. And over here, we have this financial war with China. And China is doing everything to assault America, the currency. It's motivated the BRICS to turn around to not trade in US dollars. But what's interesting, who's really being hurt the most is euro. The euro trade has dropped. So they take Chinese yuan for their commodities of Brazil, but they immediately convert to US dollars to buy other things. But the push has been for these other countries to keep their foreign reserves not in US dollars, but in gold. So we're witnessing this instability, multipolarity of power structures, and the ongoing physical war that's very tangible and very painful of what Putin is doing in Ukraine. Now, Putin is desperate for soldiers, so he's got North Korea sending soldiers. And so what happens if Putin wins? Well, then North Korea invades South Korea. China then invades Taiwan. Then China's going to turn around and probably go after Russia to say all the northern part that used to be China 150 years ago has to come back. We're in these sort of empire growing countries of China. What Xi Jinping has done is there's 194 approximate countries in the UN. Of those 194 countries, One Belt, One Road has lent money to 140 of them. So what is the ramifications in the past decade is that democracies are falling. China loves to usher in authoritarian governments. They like to deal with the destruction of Venezuela. That's what they prefer to deal with. So we're seeing the tension take place and China reaching out. And so what is that doing to make central bankers fearful? They want to have gold, maybe not the US dollar or less US dollar. That's okay. They can turn around. They're going to continue to buy gold. I was doing the calculations that if China wanted to get caught up to Fort Knox's gold, they would have to buy all the gold for the next 10 years. That's supply. Mm-hmm. What do you think would happen to that? And that every ounce produced they bought in the world, gold would be $30,000. So you got to put it in that sort of context. What I think will happen over this tenure of Trump pushing back against China, and the first thing he did in Europe was said, NATO, if you don't spend, we're leaving NATO. Well, it was a wake-up call, and we saw Germany all of a sudden accelerate. You saw France, UK, Spain, all of a sudden running to go to 2%. Now they're talking 5%. And what they're recognizing is if you play chess, 3 moves out, 5 moves out, the predatory movement of Putin to conquer all of Poland, take back Hungary, Romania, all these countries that come back into the communist, maybe half of Germany wants to take over too. And so these are very aggressive predators, both Putin and what we're seeing in Xi Jinping. So that's the drama. First, it's an economic drama. And China has brilliantly been able to sell their goods. So they buy the commodities from Africa, these nations, but then these nations have to go and buy the equipment from China. And now we see that Beyond Your Dreams, BYD, has overtaken Tesla in Europe. Why? Because the government is funding it. It's a project of big grants coming from the Chinese government. Well, now we're seeing a change in America. President Trump says, okay, we're going to invest in Intel, and we're going to invest in strategic minerals in Canada and Australia. It's a game on now. We're seeing if you want an economic war, okay, we're going to have it. Well, first of all, we're taking back the Panama Canal, and the Chinese try to buy a former World War II military base in Greenland. The government stopped that, and that's why he said, "I want to take over Greenland," because the Chinese have now built 5 icebreakers to say that the Arctic path to Europe is theirs. So we are witnessing something else that's not as tragic as you're seeing in Ukraine, but it is happening and it's building up as this momentum. We now have a huge military buildup off the coast of Venezuela. And it's serious. The sheer size of the Navy is like 20% of the Navy's weaponry now has been positioned there, and they're monitoring planes. So all this makes central banks scared. They got to go buy gold. And so then you sit back and say, okay, they're scared they buy gold, but what is the mathematical rationale? It is MMT, modern monetary theory, to solve the G20's problems is just print more money. So when I look at the whole world, and I look at all the debt relative to GDP, the global debt is almost 350 trillion, more than 3 times the GDP. China, if you added up all their debt, it's more than 300%. In fact, America is slightly less. I mean, it's less. It's much more in a stronger position. And what are these governments now doing? They're raising debt, but it's not going into social welfare programs. It's going into national security. It's going into the military spending. So what do we see other German industrial military companies? They went up 100% this year. 100%. So not only the gold went up, the military spend is going up. And with that segue is that the modern monetary theory is not going away. And so all these countries' fiat currencies are slowly going away to devaluing their country's currencies. And that's the real rational reason I say that you should have to have gold, and you have to have quality gold stocks. And I would say the corporate governance today of gold mining companies has changed a lot in 10 years, that the return on invested capital is important. You're seeing companies like Newmont, the biggest beast, buying back their stock, increasing their dividend, and they really don't care if their production is dropping. They want to have higher quality overall value for the per share growth. So we are seeing these changes, and we're still seeing Europe is way behind. And the simple example I share with you is NVIDIA sales. If you look at NVIDIA sales, less than 5% is going to Europe. 2% to Canada. Well, Canada should be at 5% because America is 50% of all their AI. So they're usually 1:10 ratio. Europe should be at least 30-40%. So we're going to see a big spend in Europe for data centers, for AI, because AI is part of all the new weaponry. All the new weaponry is taking place because China keeps these massive cyber attacks. Now, we all know KGB and we know CIA, which you're going to learn, your listeners are, at MSS. MSS is China's KGB. And they have a huge weaponry of assaulting countries on cybersecurity. So they have infiltrated all of the power stations in North America and Europe. Then that was shut down and exposed. Then they went after all the telecom. That was exposed, and they're called typhoons. So we're going to see huge spending in Europe and increasing, we're seeing in America and Canada on cybersecurity to stop cybersecurity attacks. We're going to see new weapons being created, autonomous tanks, autonomous submarines, autonomous jets, but they all need AI, high performance computing data centers. So the hunger rate, first and foremost, is for energy. China's spent much more money on hydroelectricity by rerouting the water from the glaciers in the Himalayas. They've taken this water, and it's been a frustration for India and Bangladesh because they need it for the water for the farms, and the water is going for hydroelectricity for China as they build out their data centers. Now, America has the most HPC data centers, but China has twice the amount of source of electricity, and they're going to spend money on 30 nuclear reactors. So we're seeing another type of war, and it's different than guns, and hopefully it never goes to nuclear weaponry or whatever, but we are seeing this nuked war, and China, no doubt, is saying, hey, I'm the biggest refinery of rare earths and strategic minerals. Hey, your countries in Europe shut it all down with the Green Movement and the US. Hey, we're going to stop giving you that so your mobile phones and your AI systems don't work. Now that is becoming the war. They are the biggest in making solar panels. Well, maybe they turn around and get enough silver they can stop you getting silver. So silver is responding to the demand for solar panels, but also the scarcity that people want metals. What's happened in America in this quarter is the last production of pennies. 1 penny. Buy them, store them, go and get yourself 1,000 US pennies and store them away because they're going to go up in value because they're going to be gone. And if you take a look at Andy Warhol art, scarcity is what makes the art go up in value. Van Gogh's art, because there's very few pieces, they go up in tens of millions of dollars of value. Bitcoin is all about digital scarcity, and that's has been driving the Bitcoin, but also gold. Gold is becoming more and more scarce, so we're going to see gold will trade up because of MMT, this sort of war on financial war against America by China and Russia. And there's a big push to set up a new way of transferring money. So I think we're in this incredible dynamic that we're not going to get a nuclear holocaust that's going to take place. That's not, I don't think that's in the cards unless crazy countries like Iran. So we just had Hanukkah, a disaster of 15 people being slaughtered in Australia. And the father and son that did this, where they were tracking them because the messages were coming from Iran. So Iran is still this evil force, like the dictator of North Korea and China and Putin. And we have to recognize that Iran used to control all of the Middle East. The Iranian, they want to control it again. They want all the oil that's in Saudi Arabia. They want Qatar. They want to wipe them out, and they should all be under Iran's leadership. Putin, he wants all of Eastern Europe back under his domain. China wants all the old land they used to own back over 100 years ago, and they lost against a war with Russia and then Japan. So they want that land back. So we're dealing with these beasts that are out there. And what you don't realize is that Islamic radicalism, they interpret the Quran and they interpret it that no one owns the land, only Allah. Well, that's communism. Only the political people own all the land. And so you're seeing they align themselves. And in history, I love using Steve Jobs' analogy of connecting the dots looking back. Well, if you look at the Iranian Revolution, it was the far left that were hooked up with Khamenei to attack the Shah. And as soon as that happened, the religious right-wing radicalism wiped out the communists. So it's all their power. It's the same thing going to happen in these other countries. They will use each other until they can wipe out because they have a bigger vision. Their vision is not to sell Starbucks coffee everywhere in the world. It's basically to have territorial control. And so you sit back and say, well, okay, what's happening? Well, democracies is interesting in South America, Chile just ushered in a conservative, pro-business national security leader from a communist leader. The same thing happened in Bolivia. We are invested in a big, big way in Paraguay, which has always been pro-America, pro-Taiwan. So we understand the politics there much better. But Brazil and Colombia are still left-wing beasts and they're in the backyard of America. So there's a new change going on that the Western Hemisphere, I believe, is going to become America's domain, with the Monroe Doctrine being really dusted off, and under Secretary of State Rubio made these other announcements. So we are seeing America flex its muscles that if you want to go and destroy over there, go do that, but not in our part of the world. And so central banks coming back are afraid of this. So they're going to continue to buy gold. And then smart investors, people that are listening to you and your educational format on streaming media, this is not going to be on main stage media in Germany. No, they wouldn't allow this type of conversation. And so the smarter, more educated people that believe in gold as an asset class, decentralized assets, they're going to be, I guess, I would say, resonating with these global dynamics I'm talking about. MMT is going to be the trigger that governments will go to print the money. That money is going to be to have stronger national security and stronger weaponry to protect against the aggressiveness of Putin and Xi Jinping and the Republican Guard in Iran. They're the three big ones. Then you have North Korea, which is a wild card. So you have them. So we have to think of open borders. Well, that's a great danger now, because when you have them, people aren't assimilating. The big concern when I was just in Japan, I spent a week in Japan with my daughter, learning about the culture, and was fantastic. They just brought in a new prime minister, the first time a female. And she is all about protecting Japanese culture. And everyone I spoke to, Uber drivers, etc., all love her. And she is very worried about China and all the Chinese that have been in Japan. And so she's concerned because they're not assimilating into the Japanese culture. If you want to move to Germany, then you better assimilate into the German rich historical culture. And if you don't like it, leave. Well, that's happening in Japan. And she has an 80% approval by Japanese voters that she's the person. So that is a dynamic that we're seeing growing around the world. And we're seeing more of this MMT. So I remain really strongly bullish on these, they call them in the US, alternative asset classes like gold and silver, and gold and silver mining stocks, and also Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining stocks, because Bitcoin miners are actually the first step for AI new data centers. That's what's happening in America.
Very good. Frank, thank you very much for outlining. I really like the way you think, and you're putting together all the dots, right? Because we have so many things going on in the world, and it's very good to have someone who's really connecting all of that. Let me specify a little bit on the investment thesis that I could listening a little bit from you. So I understand you're focusing still on gold, on silver, on quality mining companies. I got that. Would you also focus on those strategic metals in the future? We saw, for example, Apple investing into a rare earth company within the US. We saw the antimony run. Yes,
absolutely, because China has shown its cards. They are weaponizing strategic minerals.
Yeah.
They are weaponizing to have gold as a reserve, not US dollars. And so it's pretty blatant what they've been saying and doing. Is pretty blatant. I don't know if you're aware of your listeners, but when they've gone into Africa and they've gone into Latin America, they sell software that allows the political party in power to monitor their competition. And they can listen to every one of your cell phone calls. They have all this way of tracking. So if you are the opposition, we're going to stop you. And that's what Maduro's used to chase down. And the Nobel Prize winner, she couldn't even show up in Norway last week to receive the award. She sent her daughter. But this is real, what China has been doing in all these countries. But it's really positive. Like, besides this, you got to own gold and you have to have some Bitcoin. You just have to be strapped. But I also have an ETF on London Stock Exchange, and it's called TRIP. And you know what? It's torquing up. You can look at it on your charts. Travel is on a tear. And so the psychology of people is very different, and Europe's opening up and business travel is opening up. So we have that people actually are still safe. If they really felt there was a global threat of war, you wouldn't see hotels, especially the higher end hotels, are sold out. They're outrageously expensive. Flight tickets are expensive. So that means oil prices are falling. Airlines are making it billions of dollars. Billions. They're going to do $1 trillion in revenue. So I like to monitor the hotels and these cruise lines, also all through the Baltic, all through Mediterranean. They're just packed. Japan, every seat on the flight from Houston to Tokyo, 14-hour flight was taken. And so I monitor that. But when it comes to business, I have another ETF, but it's not in Europe. It's in New York, and it's called C. Why did I create C? Because I discovered that the arteries of our body and veins really are cargo ships. And cargo shipping carries 80% of all commodities and all finished products. So Germany imports raw commodities, iron ore, etc., and then makes steel. Then the steel is used for cars, but the commodity coming in is on a cargo ship. And the finished cars being sold to America or Asia, they're on boats, cargo ships. So when we had earlier this year on April the 2nd, Liberation Day, going after the tariff war, America was so interesting. They went everyone and then immediately, okay, offer you back off, except for China. The real war is against China. And so the cost of trips for shipping went down, and they really went to new highs. They went to new highs. So global shipping is doing well. The Houthis may change. You have to go around a longer path. They cost more. But if the world was really falling apart, cargo shipping would be telling you they'd be below the 50-day moving average and falling. That's not happening. And the dividends are very high. So I track the global economy every day on following shipping. And I really learned a lot of this, John, from Hive, because we turned around and had to, during changing of computer systems and going back and forth with Asia, we had to use airlines, and we could see cargo shipping rates going up dramatically. And then when we had big containers going to Paraguay, it would be one container, and all of a sudden it was split into 5, and the rates went up 45%. So I have a feel for Hive's business, sending stuff up to Sweden. The cargo shipping is so much more expensive. So I have a product that you can participate and follow with the world. But the excitement is no doubt Hive.
Yeah, let's talk about Hive, Frank. And I think we covered a lot of topic when we talked about the old economy, but with Hive, you're really laying the way for the new economy. We already captured that Hive is not just a Bitcoin mining company, but you also run data center. And you already said AI is going to be the next big thing still, right? And I believe everyone will use AI in the future. It doesn't matter if it's ChatGPT or whatever people will use, and also the companies companies will implement it more. So you have a data center business with Hive, which is really needed. And as you said, not just in the US, but also it will come to Europe. So give us an idea what's the next big thing with Hive and what's up for 26.
Well, let's talk about big picture now, drill down to Hive, how they're positioned for it. If you look at the biggest AI data center spend in the world right now, it's in Abilene, Texas. And there's nothing out there but tumbleweeds, flare gas, solar panels made with silicon and silver, and wind farms. So the first to go and find surplus electricity anywhere have been Bitcoin miners. So that area was once a Bitcoin mining area, and now it's a $500 billion spend. It's unbelievable. So we're seeing a Core Scientific, another Bitcoin miner, Core Weave, looking at partner with them and try to take them over. The Bitcoin miners have a lead time of 2 to 3 years faster than starting from scratch to build a high performance computing data center. What we're seeing in budgets of going to 2%, going to 5% for NATO spending in America as a big carve out line item in those budgets are for AI, for data centers. So it's easy to see, follow the money. They're saying we need these data centers. And so we can see this in Canada, and we see this in Sweden, and the same thing is in Europe, that spend. So Hive is uniquely positioned, like I've said, that we were the first Bitcoin miners, but we were also the biggest Ethereum miners in Sweden with 130,000 chips. And they're called GPU chips. Well, GPU chips are NVIDIA chips. And so we developed a skill, and very different than Bitcoin mining, which is an ASIC chip. The difference is like an American Bronco Jeep or a high-end Mercedes or a Porsche. The difference in those type of chips. And when you go to GPU chips, you have to have better technicians, more skilled, the balancing of the wheels, all those things that make a Porsche, high-end Porsche so valuable is also maintenance is a big cost because they're such high performance engines. So Hive has positioned itself in Canada and Sweden, and we're converting a data center of Bitcoin mining near a military base, like a football field away, so close. And a football field away from a hydro dam, because we only use green energy. Building the data center there, and then the same thing in Toronto. And then we found that our data center in New Brunswick on the border of Maine, about 70 megawatts, we convert that. And we will increase over the next 12, 18 months, our HPC revenue, high performance computing revenue. It will increase 5x. So that's our future for HPC. And there's two big demand drivers that you have to grasp. It's open chat or Claude or Grok. I love Grok because it can tell you what's happening on X and what people are saying because it's owned by them. So it gives you a flavor for what people are chatting about. But that's growing in revenue. Those companies' valuations are growing because the revenue is growing. It's not it's not like a year 2000 bubble where it was just eyeballs looking. No, these are people that are subscribers. And along with that is the big debt funding for military, and the military AI needs the data center. So there's two big winds coming behind your jet. They're pushing you along. It's you and I using open chat or Perplexity, et cetera, or Grok. And it is the military spend for data centers for the AI, autonomous vehicles. So I remain very bullish with that. So what we did in this past year, and since we were all together, 6 months ago? Remember, we were in Frankfurt about 6 months ago, and said that we're going to scale from 6 to 25 exahash. No one believed us. It was until all of a sudden we're there, and the numbers came out last month that our month over month grew by 8%. The year over year grew 182% in revenue. We made more EBITDA last quarter than all of last year. And that's pretty significant. The country of Paraguay has the largest dam in the Western Hemisphere. It's 7 kilometers long, and they produce over 10 gigawatts of electricity, half for Brazil, half for Paraguay. So Paraguay produces food for 60 million people. Their population is only 6 million. So their biggest source of revenue has been exporting food, cattle, corn, soy, etc. When they were selling electricity to Argentina, they weren't getting paid. So that created financial stress. But Bitcoin miners, they get paid every month. So we help build their infrastructure. And the president contacted us last month and said, I've got another 100 megawatts for you. So that means we're going to grow from 25 to 35 exahash. And I think by the time it's all done, we'll have the blue sky opportunities, a gigawatt of electricity in Paraguay. And that would put you at 5% of the global network of Bitcoin mining. So right now we're at 2% of all Bitcoin mining. And what we offer investors is a dual engine. It's Bitcoin mining, highly profitable, and it's HPC, which everyone can relate to. Bitcoin, the only sad part for me and the frustration is our stock falls because Bitcoin fell. It shouldn't be, because the data center, the value of a data center, when you secure electricity and land, the value of that a pure data center trades at 20 times EBITDA. So that would make us worth $4 billion, $20 a share stock price. That is the upside. And I think I just read last night that Motley Fools, which has 1 million subscribers, they sent out a blurb yesterday that it's the best $3 bet is Hive because you get the dual engines. So we're growing. We're very thrilled at what we're doing using sourcing green energy, especially in Paraguay. And the Secretary of State, Rubio, yesterday announced a special relationship with Paraguay for tracking global terrorists. And that means they need HPC AI data centers. Yeah. You can't collect all that data unless you have these incredible chips. So I'm thrilled that Hive is positioned as we continue to grow and go and what we're doing.
Very good. Frank, thank you very much for outlining all of this. And Hive has done a very great job this year on the operational side, but also the stock price. Yes, it has come down with the Bitcoin movement, but you have had some great return this year. So did we with our portfolios. So summarize in the end, Frank. Let's talk about your investment thesis for 2026. We already discussed gold, quality gold stocks, silver, quality silver stocks. All right. We discussed critical materials within the Western world. Is also Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining on your wish list for 2026? And what else is something you are very bullish on for next year?
Well, I think what we've seen for the past 4 weeks is the creation of a great buying opportunity. You get a few guys that are short and they come up with all this negative story on Michael Saylor's strategy company, negative story on Bitcoin, negative story on AI. It's a bust. It's never going to happen. IBM CEO on the weekend comes out with something negative because IBM missed it. They missed this boom. And so they're turning around and saying all this negative. So the prices have come down. The pure hyperscaler called CoreWeave had 7 things that were spectacular, and the 8th one it went slow, but all 7 were home runs. It would say in America baseball. Oh, Jim Cramer gets on CNBC and he just attacks over that one thing, which is not material. So there's this negative narrative that helps the shorts going into this year end. And I think that sets up the stage for a great buying opportunity because military spending is not going away. And you and I using these large language model platforms is not going away, and more businesses using them. So I think they create the stage for a great buying opportunity in technology. And I also think anything that's in Europe is in military. Europe is going to create a military complex like America. And what that means is that The wheels will be made in Portugal. The tracks made for the tank will be made in Spain. The barrel of the tank will be made in Italy, but it'll all be put together in Germany. In America, the military companies are in every state. They're manufacturing, and they all get put together by the big corporation in their home-based state. So it's recognizing that the Airbus has done that. That's what they've done in Europe with Airbus, was to create that model, and they're going to do it with now military. So I think the military spending, cybersecurity, these are going to be big, volatile, but huge opportunities for the future. And I think that this digital nomads like yourself, young guys like you could do the video screening from Barcelona. So as soon as it gets cold, I'm going to go down there and rent a place for 2 months, and I'll do all my videos from there. This is much easier. So I believe the airline traffic has 50 million, they call digital nomads, going back and forth, north and south, between winter and summer, 4 times a year, adds to huge additional demand for tourism. So I remain really bullish on these industries. We're seeing cities like Barcelona and Venice. Venice is saying it's now a Disney World theme park. If you want to go into, so you got to pay a tax for the government so that they can maintain the community. Barcelona's doing the same thing. So the great cities in Germany, they're going to end up putting a tax on tourism, which is going to be because you're visiting these museums. Like, as you know, Berlin has some spectacular historical museums, and the Pentagon, and I can go on with how much I love that history. They're going to charge not just to get into the museum, they're going to charge you to go visit the city, because the city is going to become its own Disney World type of theme park. And that is going to makes me bullish. So I'm bullish on travel. I'm bullish on these other parts. And there'll be these opportunities on the corrections to buy. Global interest rates are falling. Governments are spending. It's negative news is good news for investors.
Very good. Frank, thank you so much for outlining all of those opportunities for the next year. Sounds like we have a great time ahead, and I really appreciate the time that you took to be with us here in today's interview. Thank you very much, and I wish you a pleasant Christmas break.
Ho, ho, ho. Happy holidays. And I forgot to put on my my other hat. Where is it? They gave it to me. Here it is.
That looks great. Perfect.
I'm a man of many hats, they tell me in marketing. But I'm also the chief investment officer and the executive chairman of Hive. And for your listeners, Hive was created because I couldn't do a Bitcoin ETF in 2017. So we launched the first crypto mining company in the world, and that's Hive. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much, and talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.